Here at ScreenRant, we're huge fans of Cobra Kai, but even we have to admit it's not a perfect show. On one hand, Cobra Kai's lack of realism is a double-edged dagger. After all, the show is firmly rooted in pure 80s nostalgia. Suspension of disbelief is part and parcel of this rock and roll karate affair. On the other hand, the various criticisms flung towards the show mostly stem from how it consistently ignores reality. For instance, how has Kreese not been arrested after he broke out of prison? Sure, Kreese was wrongly incarcerated for assaulting Stingray, that's fair. It's a crime that was really committed by Silver. However, this doesn't excuse Kreese for faking his death, starting a riot, and then traveling between 3 continents as a fugitive. Somehow, despite being a sensei in the highly publicized Sci-Fi tournament, Kreese never ran into trouble with the law.
Nice.
Moreover, this lack of realism isn't just a problem with the last seasons. Back in Season 2, Miguel Diaz was notably paralyzed after that epic school brawl between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do. And to be fair, Cobra Kai showed the school ramping up security after that. But where are the enraged parents demanding an end to these regular teenage karate brawls? Other than the parents of the main and supporting cast members, the entire city should have been shocked by a teen getting paralyzed due to a decades-long rivalry between karate cults. If this happened in the real world, even civil society groups would have threatened the senseis with arrest. As it is, this part of the San Fernando Valley seems to be inside its own impenetrable legal bubble, where karate tournaments settle disputes typically reserved for criminal courts. Unfortunately, the excuse that it's just a TV show doesn't really fly anymore, not with Cobra Kai. After several seasons, it's become clear that Cobra Kai is about the effects of unaddressed intergenerational trauma. In fact, it was a brilliant touch to reveal that Mr. Miyagi was actually a reformed violent killer himself, which explains his wise and progressive approach to violence later in life. Yet, while the overarching narrative is rooted in reality, this also just highlights how unrealistic the show has become. Sure, the show can be forgiven for taking certain creative liberties. However, by abandoning the rules of its own established setting, Cobra Kai has struggled to balance fiction with fact. To be fair to Season 6, the Sci-Fi tournament has pulled off a fantastic balancing act. In particular, the fights have gotten more realistic in the last season. That said, this also brings us to what some might argue is actually the main problem with Cobra Kai. Now don't get us wrong, Ken Bearfield and Don L.Lee's team did a fantastic job improving the fight choreography in Season 6, and it really made the Sci-Fi more believable. It probably also helped that Season 6 introduced a dozen new martial artists to the show, including several international champions. That said, no amount of fresh street cred can erase the many epic, awkward fights burned into the audience's collective memory. Warning, the next part of this video discusses cringingly bad moments in Cobra Kai, and we're not just talking about Season 2's Bert versus Nate fight. There's also the weird post-prom couples fight in Season 4. Look, we know that Cobra Kai is a comedy as well. It's great when the show takes bold choices, and a certain level of camp is to be expected from this 80s action time machine. However, for a show that's largely about martial arts, Cobra Kai has far exceeded the acceptable levels of cringe and mid-fight scenes. And this can't really be blamed on the cast members who haven't practiced martial arts before the show. Even the most experienced real martial artists in the show are guilty of overhyped but ultimately middle-of-the-road fight scenes. Additionally, it doesn't help when Cobra Kai promises epic showdowns and then completely underdelivers with the choreography and outcome. In fairness to the show, truly bad and awkward fights are more the exception instead of the rule. But whenever they do happen, these underwhelming, cringy moments can really get in the way of suspending disbelief. We're not saying Cobra Kai's choreography should be on the same level as Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan films from the 70s, but if the show at least approached that level, then many of its problems would be much more forgivable. In fact, the show's unrealistically epic moments really only work precisely because it's a martial arts fantasy. Cobra Kai is practically a live-action shonen anime, and this creative choice is best served with bulletproof fight choreography. As it stands, the fights do very little to distract from the show's even more glaring problems. And this brings us to the next big problem with Cobra Kai. At this point, it seems that Johnny and Daniel's character development is being stalled just to prolong the plot. The problem isn't even that the plot is predictable. From the very first season, it's clear that Cobra Kai is about Johnny's redemption story, after him and Daniel have spent decades processing the events of the Karate Kid. This epic arc was what made the first 3 seasons so great.
Who's the man? I'm the man.
But after that, Cobra Kai's plot just moved in circles, even blatantly repeating entire character arcs in the later seasons. And we're not just talking about Johnny and Daniel. The most glaring examples of this would be Keene's entire story. He's a bullied kid who learns karate and eventually becomes the new bully. Sure, Keene turned out to be a good addition to the show, especially for Anthony's character development. But the fact is, the show already executed this story much better through Miguel and Hawk, the most epic character arcs of the earlier seasons.
Hey, great, son.
Granted, Cobra Kai's plot is a classic example of a heroic journey, like Star Wars or Yu Yu Hakusho. In short, the plot structure is justifiably circular to some extent, so we don't mind that each season finale hammers down on the same lessons about trauma, justice, and power. However, this ambitious vision can only work with dynamic writing to back it up. The constant repetition just hurts the show's epic vision. With that being said, don't get us wrong. If Cobra Kai decides to make a 7th season, we'll be among the first to stream it. None of these problems will stop ScreenRant from wanting more campy, karate-driven, 80s-inspired action. So we're not saying that Cobra Kai is bad or unwatchable, but as proven by the noticeable uptake in quality of Season 6, there's always room for improvement. Yet therein lies another big problem with Cobra Kai. Season 6 is entertaining, that's a given, but in terms of Cobra Kai's storytelling, the show arguably reached its peak in Season 5. That final fight between Silver and Daniel was the ending that both of them deserved. The Season 5 finale also saw Johnny bringing Cobra Kai to its knees, and Johnny even had just the right amount of plot armor for the occasion. With Silver arrested and Kreese dead in prison, the main antagonists got their perfect endings as well. The only thing missing from the Season 5 finale was Johnny reclaiming and reforming Cobra Kai, which would have capped off his evolution as a sensei. This also would have dealt with the problem of Eagle Fang, the most ridiculous name ever for a dojo. But that didn't happen to justify the show getting a 6th season. Some might argue that the show reached its peak in Season 3, but if the show had ended there, we wouldn't have gotten Silver franchising the dojo and taking everything to the next level. Or Robbie's redemption arc.
Why take pity on Robbie Keene?
All things considered, it would have taken very little changes for the show to have crafted the perfect ending in the 5th season. Overall, this type of problem isn't unique to Cobra Kai. It happens to every show that gets too popular. And to be fair, this is what resulted in the show pivoting so much in Season 6, which somehow delivered a fresh take on the tired tournament formula. At the same time, all this shiny new fight choreography can scarcely distract from the ongoing plot threads we've seen resolved in the later seasons. Season 6 has definitely proved that Cobra Kai can get better, but if the show gets a 7th season, the showrunners would be hard-pressed to pull off another miracle. But what do you think? Can the show turn all this around in Part 3 of Season 6? Do you think the show will really end this season? And did we miss any other glaring problems with Cobra Kai? Tell us in the comments, and keep watching ScreenRant.